I published a new blog post earlier today, July 3rd, 2025, that discusses most of my stock fund, corporate bond, treasury note, and treasury bill trades over the past few days. Trump claimed that he finalized a trade deal with Vietnam. Vietnam calls it a framework. It is my understanding that Trump is referring to a draft of a trade agreement with at least some of the details to be worked out in subsequent negotiations. It is understandable why Vietnam would be amenable to a trade deal given the lopsided balance of trade with the U.S. Products shipped from Vietnam to the U.S. totaled 136.6 billion last year, while U.S. exports to Vietnam were only 13.1 billion, creating a U.S. trade deficit of 123.5 billion last year. Trump had threatened in early April to impose a 46% tariff on products shipped from Vietnam. What struck me about Trump's announcement was his claim that Vietnam would pay the U.S. tariff of 20% on products shipped from Vietnam and 40% when the products are transshipped through Vietnam from another country, which targets primarily, if not exclusively, China. Why does Trump keep saying that foreign countries pay U.S. tariffs when it is the U.S. importer that pays the tariff tax to the U.S. Customs Bureau? Trump's claim has a deceptive purpose, in my opinion. If Vietnam paid the U.S. tariff tax, which Trump claims that it will, then neither the company located in Vietnam that ships the product nor the U.S. importer would pay the tariff taxes. And there would be consequently no price increase to the U.S. consumer for buying Nike sneakers or Nike apparel made in Vietnam, for example. There's an article published today at Bloomberg that Nike will likely increase even more the prices for its products made in Vietnam when the tariff tax is raised to 20% for shipments made from that country. Trump is just shameless and repeatedly making false statements representing to the public that tariffs are paid by foreign countries, which is absurd on its face. It will not result in price increases paid by U.S. customers. Tariff taxes are regressive in the same way as sales taxes are regressive. They disproportionately impact low-income households, including those households who now pay no federal income tax, which is about 40% of households. The Washington Post tallied over 30,000 false and misleading statements made by Trump during his first term. The total looks like it's going to go over 100,000 starting in 2016 through the end of his second term, and that's just my estimate now. When will people wise up that they are being constantly manipulated with false information and false narratives by Trump and other Republicans? That has not happened yet after 10 years for those who are still susceptible to being manipulated with demonstrably false information. So the probability of it ever happening for them, wising up that is nil or close to it, and I do not expect it to ever happen. Also discussed in the post today the jobs report, which was released earlier this morning, which investors seem to like based on the stock rally. I would note that almost one half of the 147,000 new jobs were created by state and local governments, primarily in the education sector. The private sector, according to the BLS, added only 74,000 jobs last month. The BLS also claims that the federal employment number shrunk by only 7,000. The average work week declined by 0.1%, which is a meaningful negative number considering the size of the workforce and the total lost wages from that kind of decline. ADP reported that private jobs actually declined last month. I would add that about 256,000 people left the labor force last week and have given up looking for jobs since they believe no jobs were available for them. That is in the BLS report. That is the reason for the 0.1% decline in the unemployment rate. I would also note that the Republican bill does have a tax benefit for those earning tip and overtime, provided they have taxable income. But the tax benefit is structured as a deduction. For the 40% of households who have no taxable federal income, under existing law, deduction has no value whatsoever for them and minimal value when the tax bracket is low, like 10% or 15%. The bill does take out about $1 trillion in government money from the U.S. healthcare system, which will accelerate the bankruptcies of rural hospitals. I'm trying to determine now whether any of the REITs that I own have significant exposure to those kind of hospitals. If meaningful, I will likely eliminate the position in the near future.